So why don't I introduce our guests, both from Accenture. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? So are you consultants? Is that what you're sort of known as? Okay. So Michael Kokot.
Perfect.
Okay, and Larry Gordon.
Yep.
And they've agreed to shed some light on working in a very current technology-driven situation. My suspicion is they will learn more about this, but they probably deal with people all over the country, if not the world, with their technology issues. So that I'll turn it over.
Cool. And I'll go ahead and present. Let me get this going. So it's great to meet with you all virtually. I know this is kind of a new normal for everyone, but funny enough, I think Accenture, we do a ton of kind of virtual meetings, meeting with clients. So in some ways, it is normal for me to kind of work from my home office. One fun fact is that we're actually one of the biggest consumers of Microsoft Teams, which is a kind of a virtual product as well. So, oftentimes, and really kind of through this situation, clients have come to us to kind of ask how we kind of work with a decentralized workforce and how we kind of remain productive in these times. But today's presentation is really about Accenture as an organization, and really specifically Accenture Interactive, which is an arm of the company, because Accenture is a very large company, which we'll kind of get into. And then Mike will go through, kind of his journey to Accenture, and then I'll go through my journey as well. So feel free at any point in time to kind of ping a question, ask anything, but we'll try to make this as interactive as possible. So I did want to kind of start a little bit with setting the stage and understanding a little bit more about the audience. So, has anyone kind of explored different careers in engineering? Are you guys set on engineering? Are there certain colleges that you're looking at?
For me, I'm kind of like in between engineering and another field of study. The ones I'm kind of interested in are biomedical and aeronautical engineering.
Wow, wonderful.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm interested in computer science and mathematics, but I want to go into quantitative finance.
Wow.
My name is Gabriel, and that was I'm applying for computer engineering at various schools, so that's my area of interest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess this will be spot on then. I think that's very interesting. I think Michael has a little bit more experience with kind of going the traditional route through computer science, but let's set the stage a little bit about Accenture overall. So has anyone ever heard the word Accenture or kind of know what Accenture does?
No.
Yeah. So it's really kind of an organization that is behind the scenes a lot for many of your favorite organizations. The only time you'll really see Accenture advertising is when you go through the airport. You'll see like a big Accenture sign or something like that. But for the most part, we are just kind of empowering our clients. It's a large consultancy. We work hand in hand with clients to help get them ready for the future. So this is kind of the three-pronged approach that we come with. So it's the business consultancy, so understanding whether it's financial institutions, healthcare systems, having really that knowledge based within that domain space. We also have a creative agency arm. So a lot of it is kind of producing something that will speak to an audience that is kind of personalized to whatever message. And then the technology component of it, which is really kind of the engine that makes everything fit together and work. And Mike, feel free to kind of interject at any point in time if there's anything to add there. But our mission is pretty simple.
Totally.
We want to drive sustainable growth for clients and creating meaningful experiences that live at the intersection of purpose and innovation. And I guess one project to speak of is, Michael and I had the opportunity to work on a project together. We worked with a large insurance agency based out of Hartford, Connecticut, which if you've never been to Hartford, Connecticut, you're not missing a ton. But the goal there was to truly understand the customers better, right? Through any organization that you interact with, any product that you have, there's a journey that that customer goes on. And the more information that you can get about the consumer base, the better you are at making decisions. And oftentimes those decisions are, a byproduct of having a data system in place. And that's truly what we were there for, was to kind of set up a data system. Anything that you want to add about the Harper Project, Mike?
No, I think you hit on it. I think kind of how I think about Accenture, and I can touch on this too during my section, but it's everything to do with the customer interaction and how you're interacting with these huge companies like Adidas or Subway or Carnival Cruise Line. We have a lot of good examples that we can speak to, but anytime you're interacting with them with a website or mobile app, someone at Accenture could have been either building out like what should be in that mobile app. They're building out that mobile app and actually bringing it to life. And actually, we have a lot of developers and engineers doing that. And then we have a lot of analysts looking at the data and how you actually interact with those websites and mobile apps, and then constantly improving them. So all of that is towards this mission of creating experiences that impact people's lives. So throughout the entire customer journey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just kind of talking about our capabilities, it's interesting because although projects kind of fit within the same realm of, hey, we want to be prepared for the future, we want to make sure that we have sustainable solutions, we want to be on the cutting edge of technology, every company is unique. They could be in the same industry, they can sell the exact same products, but they are a unique company with a unique offering. And some of the things that we do in our capabilities to really kind of empower these clients are, we can come up with new propositions or products. So one product that you might have experienced if you've been to Disney World is that we came up with a magic band. And this magic band is something that you get when you go to Disney World. And it kind of helps keep track of a lot of things that you might need, whether tickets, front of the line passes, things like that, and creates a digital component of your experience at Disney World. We also come up with marketing and content. So a lot of the things that you might see from a digital placement standpoint, I mean, the most traditional thing is like paid search or digital banners, but also videos or, kind of platforms internal to the client themselves. And then also experience platforms. So, you might come to a place and there might be a microsite where we want to learn more about the customer, or we're kind of fine tuning a model with inputs from the customer. But, it's an experience that kind of leads down that path. So these are some of our capabilities, but oftentimes, although we are Accenture, interactive, we work cross-functionally with other teams to kind of empower our clients.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, Larry, I was just like, I think you did a great job outlining what our capabilities. Any questions on that? I know, I think sometimes Larry and I can get in our Accenture world, and, maybe it can be confusing to people that aren't as immersed in that landscape. So any questions on kind of like what those capabilities mean, or kind of what Accenture does based on that intro?
No, I think we're good, but thank you.
Cool. Then yeah, I can basically, Accenture, to Larry's point, what he used, they speaking through, we're working with a lot of the companies that you'll think through on a normal day to day, and a lot of the companies you interact with, whether that's retail companies like your favorite sportswear, or your favorite leisure company, or your travel, if you stay at a Marriott or stay at a Radisson hotel, cars, across all industries, really, just showing the scope and kind of who we work with on day to day. Yeah, and to Tom's point kind of earlier, we work with people all over the world. So I know there's been a few days where I was on a call with someone from Italy in the morning, and then in the afternoon I got a call on with someone from London, and a lot of folks we work with are out of India. A lot of the engineering teams and whatnot. We work collaboratively with a lot of Indian and Costa Rican teams, a lot of teams all over the country, a lot from different U.S. offices as well. So very international firm, and this is just showcasing some of the offices we have where we have a lot of engineers and a lot of talent that actually build things for clients.
Yeah, and I think just to add a cherry on top on that one, I know, Mike, when we worked together at the Harper Project, it was a lot of either getting up very early to kind of be on the same timeline as the India team, because your developers are there and you want to be able to, kind of collaborate with them. So you really had to kind of get on the schedule for that. So although it sounds really fun to be able to work with people all around the world, you do have to realize if you're an early morning person or a late night person.
That's for sure. And yeah, it definitely helps you learn your time zones and keeping everything straight with Central and Eastern and India Standard Time and whatnot. But this is kind of more focused on our innovation centers. So these are specific centers across the country, or across the globe rather, where we focus on innovation. So the U.S. Has a lot of different innovation hubs. Chicago is actually one of our larger ones, which is great for our Chicago office. But then they really scale across the globe, and everywhere we have people thinking about different ways companies can interact with end users through different client experiences. So we're really proud of our innovation capabilities. And then last point on us, I think recently Accenture has been very focused on kind of building that experience piece. So the group that is building more of these innovative offerings and helping people think about virtual reality and more immersive ways for you as customers to interact with different companies. And through that, we've been actually named some of the world's largest ad agency. So that's just kind of talking through what Accenture is focused on right now. Cool. So that's a little background about Accenture, enough high-level content. But I think now Larry and I can dive into kind of our individual journeys and how we got to Accenture, what our unique path was like. And, it can be super informal. I'd love to answer any questions throughout. I have a lot of embarrassing pictures to show, but basically I'll just be talking through how I ended up here, and how I think you can explore a similar career route or a similar career. So, a little bit about me. I love hiking and I love nature. So that was me in Colorado. I love going outdoors and snowboarding specifically. I went to Indiana University, so proud Hoosier. I grew up in Indiana, and I went to Bloomington for school. And then I'm a proud South Bender. So that's me and my little brother in the green shirt. And then in the middle is Pete Buttigieg, who was the mayor of South Bend and ran for president this year. So yeah, super proud to be from South Bend and a big Indiana fan. So what I'll discuss in kind of my individual journey, I think at a high level, it's in high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do or kind of the route I wanted to take. So if you're sitting here thinking about, wow, Accenture, they're doing so many different things and they work with so many clients, how could you even get there? Like I had no idea in high school, and it's totally fine if you aren't sure quite what you want to do or are experiencing a lot of different routes. So in high school, I was just kind of experimenting and trying new things. In college, I kind of found more of my passion areas and then began exploring that outside of school. And specifically that was within CS and computer science. And then, now in my career, I'm continuing to explore and kind of focusing on my passion areas and how I can build it. So. Cool. So starting off, this was again in high school. I really didn't know kind of where I was focused on. So I did science fairs. That picture of me looking, rocking the glasses and bad haircut in high school. And that was, I was just excited to be presenting and diving into research with different professors. And that was through a research program that I had, not too unlike this, which was kind of an intro to science course where you got to present in front of judges and whatnot. So just taking classes that allowed me to explore different areas, whether it is engineering or science or anything, and just kind of experimenting with different areas. I learned a passion for business as well. So the middle picture is I did a few business competitions in high school and got immersed in different programs where you would build business plans for different companies, and that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. And then I had a high school band. So I was the drummer of a very bad garage band in high school that I spearheaded, and it was a lot of fun. That was definitely a lot of creative energy for me, writing my own songs with friends and stuff. But yeah, this is just showing kind of the breadth of experiences, and clearly I don't think there's a good, like, oh, I had this goal and I was driving towards this in high school. I was just kind of having fun and exploring a bunch of areas that I was interested in, and just kind of being passionate about things. So hopefully this can resonate with any of you guys. Yeah. Yeah. In college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get involved in something. And, I had always thought about computer science. So engineering was interesting to me, but I had never had a successful way to learn how. I didn't really know how to start, and then how I could really grow as an engineer. And I had tried, maybe you guys could relate. I did some like websites that are focused on teaching you how to code, and they weren't really successful. That was in high school, and a lot of those programs turned out to be pretty daunting and didn't really get me anywhere. So my first semester of college, I took a computer science class that was, if you look at that bad image there, it was a really old programming language. It was kind of challenging, but it gave me really good hands-on experience with actually building out a website, and building out this application. And it was my first experience actually building code, and I loved it. It was really fun for me. I think I found a passion in just building things and coding things to actually have an output. So kind of from that first class I took, very first semester, the next summer I built a website for a local summer camp. So that was outside of any class assignment or anything that anyone assigned me to do, but I was just working at a summer camp, YMCA Camp Eberhart, and I built a website for them to manage their finances. So a very, leveraging my computer science knowledge that I learned at IU my first semester, and then actually building something that I was excited about. And then I did the same thing later in my college experience to build a website to organize an organization. I was a part of my business fraternity at IU. So, I think the main takeaway here is that I found through my very first semester a class that I was excited about with computer science, and then I continued exploring that passion outside of the classroom through the websites I built for different organizations, and that was a big highlight of my experience. Cool. So how's that helped me now, and how do I use those experiences when I was just took my first computer science class, learned some coding fundamentals, and then built websites? Well, now that's kind of what I do, just at a larger scale. So coming out of school, I knew that I had found this passion. I was excited about this area, but I was thinking, how can I actually learn how to do this professionally and learn how Fortune 500 companies do this? So I now work at Accenture, where, very much to what Larry and I were saying at the beginning, we're kind of doing a lot of different things within the customer interaction space. So we're actually, the slide on the left is building a business strategy and actually thinking about why you should build a product, or what is the business case for building out a website. Software development. So a lot of us Larry and I work with a lot of developers to actually build out the software, to actually bring it to life, and then using web analytics to measure that and understand how customers actually interact with the website. So a lot of our time is spent in Google Analytics and different analytics tools to see how many users are completing different processes or clicking on different buttons or actually purchasing different things in the website. So cool. So that's a little bit about me in 10 minutes or so. I'd say, major takeaways are definitely take classes that you are interested in, but you don't understand. So the computer science class, actually, I didn't even study computer science. That wasn't my major. That was not the school I was in. I studied business, but I took computer science classes. So take classes that you're like, wow, that might be interesting, but you don't know necessarily how it will fit into your journey, because I think those, you never know how that's going to impact what you are passionate about and what you're excited about. And then I think the other element is explore those passions outside of your main classwork. So, if you're excited about music and you really love the music classes you're taking, maybe go start a garage band or, go play at different coffee shops. Or if you're really excited about coding, go build a website for an organization you're excited about, and actually, make an impact that way. And yeah, just keep exploring and learning throughout the journey. Any questions? I feel like I just said a lot, but happy to field any questions on kind of my experience and how I got here.
What was the business competition? We have a lot of students in this class who are also have taken part in a big business competition. The course they take is called Nifty. So I was just curious, what was the one you were involved with?
Yeah, good question. I competed in a few. A lot of them were not in courses. They were like summer programs. And Tom, I could actually send you. I can dig it up. It was a Purdue. It was the Purdue Entrepreneurship Academy, and it was like a summer program where you spend a week at Purdue and you're solving different business problems and then building a business plan for a different entrepreneurial idea. So I think I can send you that specific one, but I would definitely encourage any of you to explore any program like that where you can, even if it's over the summer for a week or two, or a classroom like Tom mentioned, any program where you can get immersed and actually build a business plan and work with a team to do that. That's very similar to what we do at a day-to-day at Accenture. So awesome experiences, and that's great that you have exposure to some of those.
Cool, that's great to know. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
So you mentioned that you were interested in computer science and engineering, but you didn't really have like a very good experience when you were first learning coding online.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering what made you try or focus on computer science rather than other maybe more hands-on engineering or something.
Yeah, good question. I'd say I'll answer that question, I think, in two parts. And one focused on kind of what the difference was between the website coding when I was teaching myself in high school, and then when I actually was in the classroom and when I was exploring outside of the classroom in college. And then also why computer science versus a hands-on engineering. And both good questions. I think the first piece is that the big difference between a website that I was trying to learn on in high school was that there was no one over me that was teaching me how to do it. So and it's really hard to teach computer science in general. I mean, it's something that you need hands-on experience to do it, and you need your own time to actually sit down and think about it. But when I was doing it outside in high school, there was no teacher that's grading you, that's actually saying this needs to get done by this certain date. And I think having that pressure helped a lot when I was first learning it. So actually having a teacher say, this is due every Friday, and you can come to these office hours and learn more. I think just having that pressure and system around it really helped. And then when I was building things outside of the classroom in college, and I had built this fundamental skill set, I think I found a need, and then again, kind of building a timeline and saying, I need to build this website by the time I start working at the summer camp, or I need to build this website by the time my business fraternity actually launches this initiative. Like actually setting timelines for yourself and then making yourself accountable. I think those are the best ways to teach yourself. But then more specifically to your question on hands-on versus computer science, I think I really like computer science because you can do it very quickly. And you can build a website or build a different application and experiment and run your code in a very short amount of time because it's all digital. And if you're doing hardware engineering, like that's awesome. And if that's your passion, you should definitely go for it. But I think for me, it was just harder to get all the materials together and then actually build and iterate on that. It's kind of a little bit more of a cumbersome process that I was never as experienced in for hardware. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Just quickly, I'll go through kind of my journey into the space that I'm in now at Accenture. And I really kind of didn't know at all what I wanted to do in high school, much like Michael. But I was from Columbus, Ohio, currently working at Accenture. Favorite book is Guns, Germs, and Steel. I like to bike, so being outside is a wonderful thing. And then also, I would say my favorite programming language is probably JavaScript, and that might be because that's the one that I know the best. But I went to the University of Dayton, and I was a psychology major there. So, not really kind of in the engineering space at all. I did take a few computer science classes just because I was a curious individual. But I knew a lot of the concepts in psychology, understanding user behavior, understanding how large groups of individuals work and kind of behave and aggregate. Kind of that social science piece of it has always been foundational to me, but I really didn't know how that would manifest itself in a career. So I ended up doing a 1-year master's program in business, which was a wonderful experience. That's when I actually started to kind of understand how some of these concepts would come together. I too did a business case competition for Yum Brands. They were trying to figure out kind of a strategy for how they partnered with the World Hunger Relief Foundation. So it's really good to have the ability to start to see how these problems work themselves out in the real world. And really, the business component of it is a very important piece because you can be very skilled technologically, or you could be one of the best engineers, but the business component of it is really important just to start to understand how things will be resourced, kind of how projects will kind of be manifest. When you come up with a great plan, how will it be implemented? And a lot of those are kind of those business foundations. So if you have the ability to, in college or kind of in your time now, having some of the foundations in business, finance, economics, accounting, things like that are not going to be things that you, maybe feels that you go into in depth, but definitely will help you navigate life first, but then also navigate the space that your clients are operating in as well. During this time, I did have a blog, and it was kind of something that I just like to play around with. And that was the first time that I kind of discovered Google Analytics, which is the software that I'm probably most skilled with. But understanding how people are interacting with a site in real time really started to kind of pique my interest as a social scientist to be like, well, I love understanding user behavior, but now I have the ability to see it in aggregate for many different people, and I can kind of get this information in real time, which is really what kind of started to pique my interest. But it really didn't manifest itself until a little bit later, because my very first job out of school was actually working for a office furniture manufacturer. So Steelcase is a company based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And for anyone who may have been in an office building before, you know, they have like long desks and like cubicles back in the day, but now they're more so kind of open space environments. But I was that point person kind of operating the profit and loss for this office furniture manufacturer. And although it was, you know, great to have a job and kind of be working, I knew that ultimately that wasn't the thing that was going to bring me, you know, passion in the long run. And my curiosity just kept up. And, you know, a lot of these things that I used to interact with started to come back to the forefront, especially kind of Google Analytics specifically. Started to look more online, take some online certificates and things like that. And then I started kind of a transition into the field that I'm in now, which is digital marketing. So what I did was, you know, essentially I just went to a career fair, started to kind of see what the landscape looked like, started talking to different companies and asking what the skills that they're requiring. And then I went to a coding boot camp. So that was the first time that I really had formal training in it. Prior to that, I would just read books and try to, you know, kind of navigate things and kind of build things out myself. But to Michael's point, I do think when you're first starting out, it is important to have someone who's been there before, because once you alleviate some of the friction and some of the frustrations that come about when you first get started in it, then you can start to be a lot more creative and not kind of worry about some of the lower level things that kind of impede you in building things out. And then I started at like a really small firm. It was kind of a startup. It's called Rise Interactive. But when I first got there, it was probably about 45 employees. And then by the time I left, like 2 years later, there were like close to 200. So it was like really fast growing startup, really fun environment that exposed me to a lot of different kind of platforms, technologies, and ways of approaching client problems, but always with a grounding in kind of the web analytics space, right? So that's really kind of where I've hung my hat throughout my career. But you know, always I've been pushing my knowledge base as well. So I've always tried to like build out different sites and tried to just push my knowledge in this space because it's about practice. To Michael's point, if you have something that you have a goal of doing, you know, whether it's building out a portfolio site or it's building out something that kind of can give you information about a subsection of the population, or kind of you know, plotting something on a map with data surrounding it. It's like, what's the end goal? It's nice to have it tied to some due date because that kind of presses you to get it done. And then really, I think the most beautiful piece about you know, computer science or just technology in general is that you can share it with everyone, right? And then once you share it, you can see how many people come to it. So I've really kind of like fell in love with the process of building things out, kind of tinkering with it. And really, I don't ever beat myself up if it's not as beautiful as another site. There's always going to be a better developer, but it's always about just kind of honing your craft in your skill set there. And then, you know, I kind of had a fortuitous route into Accenture. I have always been pretty involved with the community, and on the right there, I was volunteering with a company called the Urban League, and they had a competition for high school students that were doing kind of business cases. And the funny thing is, the lady to my left in this picture was actually a senior manager at Accenture at the time. And I was getting a little bit restless, and you know, we talked for a little bit, but I took her card, and you know, I think about 3 or 4 months later, you know, we started emailing back and forth. And you know, what really kind of helped get me into Accenture was the fact that I had taken on a lot of these projects. And I think the component of curiosity is one thing that you know, Accenture really values, because you know, if you're curious about how to solve problems that may manifest themselves in your life, or maybe not problems, or just coming up with solutions for things, then you'll be well equipped when it's time for you to come up with solutions for clients as well. So this is kind of two-pronged. One, always look for opportunities to kind of volunteer and give back to the community, because I think that those things really kind of pay off, if not in a tangible way like this. Every time, it is something that is very important to do. And then if you have a strong sense of like where you want to be, then when that opportunity comes up, you won't miss that opportunity, because you will have already had that defined by the time that opportunity arises. So I guess I'll pause there, and then we can talk a little bit about the question that you had about digital analytics. So first, I'll kind of just pause and say, we'll kind of open it up for questions. Any questions that kind of come forth from that presentation?
Well, I have one question. It may be a little off, but I just have a question about the coding boot camps, because I've heard like mixed reviews about those, like whether or not it's worth it. So I'm just curious, like from your experience, do you think it was like worth it in your experience? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say when I got into the coding boot camps, which was like, a little while ago, I graduated grad school in 2012, and I think I was in a coding boot camp like 2014. That's before the prices on them started to become astronomical, right? So I paid like $2,000, which, yeah, it's a little bit of an investment, but I think it was worth it, because one, it allowed for me to put that on my resume, but then two, it also allowed for me to put the projects that I built into a digital portfolio. So I'd say at the price point that they are now, probably not. I probably would tell someone to take a online course through like Udemy or Coursera, where you have kind of that someone kind of walking you through in a video format. But I think it just kind of depends on the cost component of it, to be honest.
I'd say on that classes, generally what I've seen, and Larry, feel free to add your own experience, but in my experience, it's been mostly people that are maybe in a point of their career where they want to transition, and then they go to a boot camp where they can learn those skills and kind of build out their coding skills to transition their careers. So it might be for a little bit more seasoned professionals. I'd say, as you're kind of where you are as a high school student and going into college, I'd encourage you to think about, ways you can couple that with your broader college education or something, and see if, what classes your university offers or something beyond looking at a coding boot camp for now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think the core of what the main thing is like understanding what you actually want to do. Because if you go into a class or a boot camp and you're just like, okay, I'm coming here and I want you to teach me everything, and I don't really have an idea of where I want to go, then you're wasting their time and yours. But if you come in and you say, hey, I've done all of these things, and I know in order to pivot, I need to learn these two coding languages, SQL and Python, and this is a great course to help me do those because I want to become a database engineer, right? That's a lot different than kind of someone walking through the door without real kind of intention in what they want to do.
Could you talk more about the web analytics and just data analytics for the company in general?
Yeah, certainly. I think this is really kind of an early entry point for people. Google Analytics is a free service, and it's really kind of gone through some morphing over the years, but essentially it's a platform and it's based off of cookies. So every time someone comes to your site, they get a cookie placed on them, and it's just basically reading that cookie, and it's telling you some things about that user, their location, what events or what actions they're taking on your site. And then once you get enough people, you can start to aggregate that data and start to tell a story about what your customers look like from a demographic standpoint, from kind of a time on site, kind of a behavioral standpoint. But there's other players in the space as well. So Adobe has a product. There's some that have kind of phased out, but Omniture, what used to be a product. But it's really kind of better understanding your customer when they hit the site.
Yeah, to add to that, we can include some links. There's a really easy Google Analytics tutorial that can kind of give you hands-on experience that we can send to Tom as well. But basically, to Larry's point, it's just analytics that allows you to see how many users are doing this on the site or how many users are doing that. And it's a way for business people at companies to make decisions so they can actually see, well, a lot of people are doing this, but they have this problem in this area. We need to make that change or something.
Yeah, thank you. And I have another question, but it's a bit more technical about the data analytics. Do you recommend, personally, just in your opinion, do you recommend using like programs like Google Analytics and maybe Tableau versus using a hard programming language like Python or R?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It really depends on what you want to do. I think those are kind of like different tools. If you think about it, a lot of the programming languages are going to be better at doing different things. So some are mainly meant to increase how it like website looks and feels, or how an application actually looks and how you actually use it. Some coding languages are meant to help with the back end and actually kind of work with databases or actually get data to put out to a different website or mobile apps. So that there's a variety of different purposes for coding languages. And then I think you're also touching on another bucket, which is not even programming languages, but are more like tools for analysis, like Google Analytics and like Tableau, which are more measuring, and they're not languages as much as just tools you can use to measure different websites and whatnot. So I think that's based on your passion area. It's hard to go wrong as long as you just kind of start diving and start learning a bit. Personally, I always recommend Python. Python is a good programming language that is very versatile and allows you to, it does take a lot of it can be used for a lot of different ways. So it's always a good skill set to learn, and it's generally easy to pick up at first. But...
Thank you.
And I'm going to flip to just a quick kind of architecture diagram. It is kind of a little bit convoluted, but it does touch a little bit on what you're asking about. And oftentimes we'll stand up a solution for a client, and it'll be quite complex, the data that we're trying to pass. This is kind of an old slide, but can you guys see my pointer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, a lot of solutions are very complex, right? So to your question, it's like right here, we're serving ads, right? So if you're going to see anything like paid search ads, are you going to see display banners, things like that? All of that data, we want to tie that with customer data. So that's going to be in Google Analytics, right? But then all of that data, even email and social media data, we want that to pass through Google Analytics so we can combine that with customer data. And then we're going to put it into some database, right? And then once it's in a database, you might want to visualize it with something like Data Studio or a Tableau or something like that. But you might want to just have a raw pull from that database using SQL or even possibly Python, right? So, I just kind of included this because it's an engineering class, and I just thought it would be cool for you guys to kind of see this. But there's a lot of decisions that are made, and to, Michael's point, it's like part of it is just kind of some of it's like, what do you feel comfortable with? But then also it's like, what does the business need? A lot of times people are a little bit, organizations don't necessarily have the workforce that understands Python and some of these kind of these deeper level languages, but they do have people who can look at a dashboard, or they have people that look at Google Analytics and kind of can understand that. So this is kind of a really kind of rudimentary chart, but I just wanted to kind of familiarize you all with some of the things that kind of happen here.
it's kind of a question more about your education. How was graduate school or business school?
So for me, graduate school was a savior, and I'm not even sure. It was kind of fortuitous how it came about, but I was a psychology major and I graduated and I'm like, what do I really want to do with a psychology degree? Like, there's no way I can listen to everybody's problems day in and day out. Like, that would be really tough. But and then, you know, this program was like geared towards social science students or liberal arts students who wanted to round out their career and understand business a little bit. So for me, it was very it was really good because it introduced me to concepts of marketing and concepts of econ and concepts of you know, accounting and finance. And I think, you know, just understanding what like gap accounting is versus, you know, just like a lot of these concepts kind of come back up because when you're meeting with a client, they're thinking about money, you know, they're thinking about like kind of driving business and things like that. So you have to be able to operate in a technical world, but then also kind of speak their language from a business standpoint. So I think it really did help round me out. But to that point, I had a fellowship to go there, so it was free. So you know, there's always a cost component to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say to Larry's point though, you know, definitely a theme throughout my own engineering experience has been thinking about what the actual why you're doing it, you know, and whether you're an engineer, whether you're actually a business manager or whether you're just an engineer. I think that's always going to be a core component, and thinking about why you're building something and not just building to build. But with that said, you know, when you're early and starting out, you're just experimenting with different engineering platforms. Just be excited and dive into it. You know, I think any learning is good learning, and to Larry's point, you know, it doesn't have to be the prettiest thing in the world, but anything you're building at the beginning is you know, a good learning opportunity.
So this is kind of a question for both of you guys. So like you kind of touched upon like throughout your education in college that you kind of felt like you will have the passions in other fields. Was there ever a point like throughout that, besides taking the computer science or the after school courses, like did you ever feel like you want to do something and consider switching your major from either business to computer science, or for, I believe it was for Larry, from psychology to computer science?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, I did think about it, and I started taking computer science classes like the second semester of my junior year. So I knew that it was not feasible to kind of switch my major at that point. But that's why I kind of took the onus on myself to say, hey, there's all these resources out here. Let me go start building things on my own, because, you know, there's the education that you'll get at school, which is kind of teaching you how to think, pointing you in the right direction. But then there's the education that you have on your own and through life experiences and through things that you expose yourself to. So I kind of took the onus on myself to go that route instead of kind of switching majors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think that's a great question, and that's something, you know, that I really kind of struggled with throughout college, was like, do I want to change my major? And I think I was never really sure. I'm always someone who's kind of like on the fence and like is examining, you know, what the best approach is. And I kind of overthought things a lot. So I was definitely in between both of those for a long time. And it was never like, oh, this is the right decision at any point. It was definitely like, oh man, I do love computer science and oh, I do love business, and kind of going between the two. And I'd say it's kind of funny now, kind of where I am, and looking back, you know, either studying computer science or studying business purely, I think both of those areas could have gotten me to where I am now, and to my skill set. And I think that's just speaking to kind of, if you follow what you're interested in, even if it's not necessarily like, you don't need to change majors to be passionate and be interested in a specific field, and you can still end up no matter wherever you want to. You just kind of letting whatever you're interested in about guide you. So, you know, I'm working with a lot of computer science engineers that actually graduated in that. I'm working with a lot of people that just graduated with business. So, you know, it doesn't really matter as long as you follow what you're excited about and you do things that you're passionate about.
Thanks so much, you guys. This was really nice. It was really nice to hear sort of recent experiences of how you got to, went from a sort of not knowing exactly what to do into a very technical field, which I think is a great illustration for our students to know that there's lots of ways to do this, and this is one way. Thanks also for showing us that the architecture of a plan you put in place. You're the first people that sort of showing everybody some actual something that they drew or nice to see. Give people idea. Whoops, they do.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that it didn't include was the people component, which that's sitting across different teams with different agendas, and the Salesforce team and the Google team. So kind of managing the people, is a lot tougher than managing the technology. But
right. Also, highlighting that when you meet with people, they're worried about making money. They don't really care about technology. Cool. They just want to know.
Right.
So another good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time, and
Thank you.
great insight for all of us.
Certainly.
Thank you.